Alexa, turn the music off.
Oh, Lord have mercy.
Good evening, She Shackers, and thank you for tuning in to another night of conversations with the Queen here in the She Shack. It's always a pleasure to come to you guys. I look forward to every Tuesday night where we come and we talk about all kinds of different topics that relate to or that affect the community as a whole, or sometimes it's just things that kind of like affect us, just like things that we're dealing with on a day-to-day basis. It kind of like, let's put it out there. I'm feeling a little anxious. This Tuesday is the big day to vote, and
Speaking of which, I did vote. I did early voting.
I bet you did after last week's show. I'm sure that would have
Oh,
been.
yeah. Donald Trump show did enlighten me last week.
Yeah,
I went on and did early voting.
Yes, and I don't know. Some people maybe be feeling a little, undecided about even like feeling pressured in a sense, like if you're a Democrat, you need to vote. You have to vote Democrat, and if you're a Republican, you need to vote. You have to, vote Republican, because it's becoming like who's in control, that kind of thing. Yeah. We're not going to spend a lot of time on voting, guys, but actually we are going to talk about it. But tonight actually kicks off a series of creating the new you here in the She Shack, and we're going to put, like, what does that really entail, or what do you think about when you hear creating the new you? For me, I'm actually on the creating the new you journey. I have opened up aspects of my life to share with different people as I've taken this journey. This journey actually kind of took me in a sense, and so I decided, like, let me share some of that with you. Maybe I can give some information about how this all started, or sometimes you're in a place in your life where it doesn't really seem like it's much balanced, and you're trying to figure out the direction. I know for me, flipping over on 40 was something, that was something spectacular for the kid, because I was just like, at 30, actually, like, kind of when I turned 30, I was like, oh, I thought I was grown, but now I'm getting grown at 30. But then when I hit 40, I was like, ew, things is changing. Kids is grown, hair is gray. I don't have as much time as I kind of thought I had.
And she's talking numbers. I stayed 35.
Oh, so obviously she won't be able to relate to what's going on.
They told me I had to up my age. So I had to up my age because she told me, but Mom, you have to be older than me.
Right, I'm just trying to figure out, like, how am I going to be older than my mother? Like,
yeah, I understand.
So a part of this creating the new you journey for me, I found myself in a space at one point in my life. I don't know if it was because had hit the turn of 40. I found myself gaining weight. I found myself having some body imaging issues. I found myself having some self-esteem issues. Not feeling intimidated by, like, others' youth, but I wasn't feeling as youthful, and I wasn't feeling as attractive. And I made a life-changing decision in every sense of the word. And a couple years ago, I decided that I was going to change my body image a bit, and I sought out to have a tummy tuck.
Okay. I mean, yeah, you did.
And when I decided to do that, oh my gosh, it was a journey, to say the least, but it also let me know how much I had neglected myself, how much I had neglected my health, how much I had not taken care of myself, and that I wasn't as healthy as I thought I was. And that was like just being focused in on working a lot, taking care of the family, taking care of the home, and meeting the needs where they needed to be met. Being a grandmother, being a mother, a aunt, a wife. I was working in an extreme amount of hours.
Well, I mean, you got to look at it this way. I mean, I think a lot of women have been through the same thing you have, including myself. I mean, I didn't have no tummy tuck. Let me just say that. But when I got to be a certain age, it kind of hit me a little differently than you. Number one, my mother died when she was 43. So when I got to be 42, 41, I was extremely afraid.
Can I ask you a question? Because you say your mom died at 43. Did it make you more aware of your health because your mother had passed away at such a young age?
It made me more conscious of my health prior to that. Like when I mean, I've been conscious of my health for quite some time because I knew what my family history was. You know, the heart disease, the diabetes, the strokes, the cancer, and all that other stuff. Well, because of the fact that I had cancer early on in my life, that was the changing. I think that was the steering, the guidance of me kind of being more health conscious.
Okay.
And then the other thing is, you know, because my the people on my mother's side of the family, their lifespan wasn't that very long, you know. So and then you know, and I think it was because I was young when they, you know, I was a teenager when I lost my mom, who raised me. I was a teenager and she died from cancer. Young. Then
we actually talked a lot about cancer in a couple
series back. But for me,
talk about that.
Yeah, but for me, when I in fact got diagnosed with it, you guys were very young, and I think that's when I, you know, it came to the realization that, you know, if anything happened to me, what's going to happen to my kids?
I think that was a part of for me. I do believe that was a part of concern. What that was driving me.
Yeah, that was a driven force.
Not necessarily driving me to be more health conscious aware, but a driving force that's driving me. That was like, you know, for lack of a better term, the steering wheel. That was that was pushing me to like be better, to be to bring about more financial stability, to like that was like the most driving factor that I felt for me, especially feeling pressured as a young mom. I don't know if a lot of people know or not, but I became a mother, a teen mom actually, and by the time before I was 20, right before my 21st birthday, I gave birth to my third child 2 weeks before my 21st birthday. Yeah. So I felt like well,
I mean, you know, for you, I mean, life had its dynamics. Life had it up and down. True. You went through some very traumatic times in your young adult life. And for me, to watch you go through that, even though I really didn't say anything, sometimes, you know, the mother suffers in silence. So, you know, I watch you go through it, and, you know, I as they say, I kept my good eye on you. I allow you to, you know, handle it the best way you thought you knew how to handle it. And then, after we had a conversation not too long ago, that was like a little bit mind-boggling, I would say. But to look at what happened then and where you are now, I think you handled it quite well.
I do appreciate that. I do, and I guess that's why I really wanted to talk about the transition and the just topic. You know, some people say you cannot create a life that you want.
Yes, you can.
Some people say you cannot create a life that you want, especially when you have a lot of the cards stacked against you. And as being young, being black, at a time was not married, single, 3 children, and lacking direction, feeling unsure about a lot of things in life. It could look like, and it could feel like, and a lot of times it did feel like I was defeated. I did, but I mean, I didn't carry defeat, because I was taught not to look like what you're actually going through. And then at that time, I didn't understand that was the part of God keeping you, when you're not looking like what you're actually dealing with on the inside of what you're going through. And that's really what we're going to be talking about tonight, because in order to get to a space of complete, like feeling not just happy, but feeling joy, because that's what's going to actually help you press through the journey, is to deal with you first. And one of the things I had to learn how to deal, what I had to learn how to deal with, is how to love me, or how I wanted to be loved. It's like easy to say, the old cliche saying of treating people the way you want to be treated. But I learned that that's not always a true statement. It's more of treating people the way they want to be treated, not necessarily the way you want to be treated. I learned that just because I want to be treated a way doesn't necessarily mean that's the way someone else wants to be treated. Agree or disagree?
Well, I can agree and disagree all at the same time.
Okay.
Yes, everybody is not going to treat you the way that you want to be treated. But for me, that's where my determination kicks in. Because I always said, well, it was taught to me that respect is not given to you. Respect is earned.
I'm not really necessarily talking about respect, though. Like, that's not the same thing. That's not the same thing.
I understand that, but it goes along with what you are saying. Yes, everybody is not going to treat you the same. Everybody's not. But this is the thing about being treated differently, or the way that you expect somebody to treat you, right? See, I always said that you can't control anybody's action, but you can always control your reaction.
No, I do agree with that, but that's not necessarily the driving point.
No, it's not necessarily the driving point, but you have to put it all there. You can't just take one piece and not the other. I disagree. And the reason why I disagree with that, because if you're breaking things down for a matter of understanding, it's just like a jigsaw puzzle. Pieces do go together. One piece go with another piece that goes with another piece that goes with another piece. And that's but at the end of the day,
yeah. But at the end of the day, you can't jump and try to connect a piece without dealing with it. No, it's not about not fitting. It's about not addressing the first piece. And the first piece of the puzzle, if you want to be, it says like, if you want to be treated a certain way, you got to act a certain way. You got to carry yourself a certain way.
You know what? I don't believe in carrying myself a certain way.
I disagree with it. That's not true. You sent me to etiquette school. How you gonna say you don't believe in carrying yourself a certain way?
Because I guess it's because it's natural for us. I guess it's natural. I mean, I'm not.
No, because that's contradictory. Like,
no, I'm not trying to be contradictory. I know I sent you to etiquette school. I always wanted more for you than I wanted for myself.
I understand that.
Okay. Yeah, I carried myself a certain way all my life. Same way with you. You carry yourself a certain way. Right. When you enter I guess you can look at it like this. When you carry yourself a certain way, you have a certain aura about yourself, okay? Whereas, a lot of times people say that I was, I've been called all kind of stuff, sedity, uppity,
that's just like my girlfriend Shoni, platform funny acting black girl, and on her journal, on the back of it, you know, what people say, you funny acting, right? You acting funny, you acting bougie. Why couldn't it be? Maybe she's hungry, maybe she's tired, maybe she doesn't feel well, but it's automatically come to a, you know, the conclusion, oh, you funny acting. Oh, like she always says to me, you are a funny acting black girl. But I'll take that, and the reason why I say that, because I'm so used to being misunderstood that it's like a second nature for me. Like, if you want to call me funny acting, that's cool.
Yeah, I been care. You know, a lot of times people say that I'm hard to address, or I'm
unapproachable.
Yeah, I'm unapproachable, or I'm arrogant. And in actuality, I'm none of those things.
But the thing is, sometimes we don't realize a persona that we're putting off that will make someone else perceive a certain thing about us. So that's why when I said, coming right back to it, instead of saying, I'm going to treat you the way I want to be treated, I'm going to treat you the way you want to be treated. But in order for me to know how you want to be treated, I got to take the time to get to know you.
Yeah, that's
instead of saying, I'm going to treat everybody the way I want to be treated. That's an assumption that's really not a fair one to the people around you. Because how do you know that person want to be treated the way you want to be treated?
Well,
they want to be treated.
Know what? I look at it like
them.
That's true too. And I have to agree with you there. Because a lot of times I come in contact with people that know somebody else. And they give you this assumption about this person. You know, oh, this person, this, that, and the third. Well, I came to the conclusion, well, that's your opinion.
That's your opinion, absolutely.
And I always try to have an open mind when I come in contact with other people. Once I learn that person, like you said, then yeah, I would treat them accordingly.
Exactly.
Right? But once that person showed me who they truly are.
Oh, that's something different. See, we didn't get to that topic yet. We haven't gotten there
and
yet.
I still treat them accordingly.
Exactly, and I'm not disagreeing with that at all.
You know, so, yes, you know, creating the new you, yes. Like with me, I have to create a new me. And the reason why I say I have to create a new me, it was brought to my attention, which I already know, it ain't no secret. I've gained a significant amount of weight, okay?
Okay.
And talking to my doctors and physicians and all this kind of stuff, they said that for me, this is very dangerous, okay? For more than one reason. I'm not going to get into all this old health stuff, but in order for me to be around and live a life that I want to live, travel, do whatever it is that I want to do, be with my grandkids, my great-grandkids, or just be with myself, I need to lose the weight. So what I've decided to do is start doing things to manifest that weight loss.
I absolutely.
So
it's funny that you say that, because it's weight loss or even being on a weight loss journey, because I think the conception of, you know, I'm a diet and lose this weight, I want to, you know, get in this dress, or I just want to be slimmer, or it's going to make me feel more attractive. I had the same wake up call. I had a very similar wake up call from my physician that said, "Hey, you plan on sticking around for a while. These are the things that you're going to need to do."
Right.
One of them was, you got to stop smoking, sis. Like, you just have to stop smoking. Everybody have a thing. For me, you know, I've been dealing with hypertension since I was in my teens. I've been dealing with hypertension
since she had her first baby.
Since I was in my teens. So that had been a large challenge for me to really to accept that I depended on pills to keep me healthy and to keep me alive and to keep me to be able to be a parent to my children. Like, it was a large adjustment that I had to learn how to make, that I had to learn to make over time. So because I was stubborn and hard-headed and didn't want to accept the fact that I was not normal, feeling that normally a person that's 19 doesn't have hypertension that would be affecting a 50 or a 60-year-old. But that's exactly what I was dealing with. I was dealing with something that could potentially cause me to lose my life and or be on dialysis or be bedridden and all of these types of things. And it was very difficult for me to understand, like, I can't eat like everybody else. I can't do like what people my age are doing because I gotta take this medicine. Because if I don't take this medicine, I'm going to have a terrible headache, my heart palpitations, my hands and my feet and the legs are going to swell, and then I'm going to be very unhappy and uncomfortable. So it was like,
you either swallow the pill or suffer.
You take it right. And so when I actually really came and just accepted that this is what it was, and I tried all different kinds of alternatives. So I know there's some viewers out there that says, you can do this. You can try sea moss. You can do garlic pills. And when I tell you that I don't think there's not one holistic thing that I have not tried. The only thing that I didn't try to do was pray my blood pressure away. And but I'm learning. But but the other thing to that is, some people say, God doesn't create illness and God doesn't do this and God doesn't do that. But I was able to come to terms that this is how God created me. But I also thank God for having given knowledge to people to create these pills that's going to make my life, fulfilling at the end of the day. So I get it. I get it.
Remember that I didn't want to take the blood thinners and stuff like that in the beginning. And when I was in the hospital, you said, well, Mom, you got a choice to make. You either take those blood thinners or you die. And
I like how you just be bringing up old stuff in conversation.
You got to think about it this way. 85% of the conversation that I had that was pertaining to me when I was going through a lot of the things that I went through is that because I confided in you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's the reason why a lot of time I always say what the conversations that we had. See, this is the thing about Yvette and myself. We have an unconditional means of communicating between one another. And on top of everything else, we have unconditional love.
Absolutely.
So when things affect me, I don't have a problem talking to her about it because I'm talking to her for two reasons. Number one, I'm talking to her because she's my daughter and she's the only one that I have. Number two, I'm talking to her because she's my friend. On top of being my daughter. I mean, she's my...
We definitely roadies.
Yeah.
We definitely...
This is my ride or die kind
of
person,
Yeah.
I took her everywhere I went when all her childhood, teenage year, wherever you saw me, you saw her. And it wasn't because I was keeping an eye on her. It was because of the fact that this was my ride or die person. Okay?
I think also, like when we talking about like rewinding the time and going back to a place, I was growing up in an era where it was cool to hang out with your mom.
Yeah,
like, it was actually like, it was actually a thing. Like it was like the thing. When mom was getting up and going, I'm ready. I'm going to the, because it was actually a thing. It was encouraged that you hang out with your mom, go to the store. But that's how you learned how to shop. That's how you learned how to budget.
Right.
That was the time where you had an opportunity to kind of actually talk to your mom. And like now we're dealing with an era of it's not so cool, and we have a lot of ladies, young girls. Now they're potentially parents of their own, and they missed that block. For whatever the reason may or may not, and I'm not trying to minimize one reason from another, but it ultimately it has an effect on how you become who you are destined to be.
Well, so, I look at that like this. See, my whole thing is, you remember when you was coming up, I used to tell you when you were 12, I want you to live like a 12-year-old.
That was, but this.
But let me. I'm just saying. The reason why
go ahead.
The reason why I said that, or the reason why I wanted you to live in that manner, is because to me memories are important. Okay, And it gives you something to go back to.
I'm not disagreeing with that.
And
but
then the thing of it is, see, you have a lot of young teenage girls out here. I'm going to say 14 years and younger that are mothers. Okay? And they don't have, I'm not going to say all of them, but I'm going to say quite a few of them do not have a real good support system.
I'm speaking to the ones that maybe was 14 when they had their kids, but you grown like me now, and you still trying to figure some stuff out.
Well, you know, that happens too.
I'm talking to, because like at this point, it's up to us to address those 14-year-olds that's maybe mothers now that maybe be lacking some direction. But in order for us to be able to be productive, for us to be able to be impactful, we have to deal with us. We have to make sure that when we're going and mentoring or trying to offer guidance or support or instruction, that we're not looking crazy out here in these streets. Because a lot of us are looking crazy. You want to tell them, oh, well, girl, you need to go do this. Or, boy, you need to go do this. But you're not looking like what you're speaking. And I think it's so important that that's why I'm bringing up this topic of creating the new you. Because if we're going to be impactful to our youth, if we're going to be impactful to the young ladies coming up, to the young mothers that's coming up, you don't have to be 14. You could be 20, 21, 22, 25, or whatever that age may be, and you are still trying to figure it out. And you looking for, maybe you don't have an aunt that you can go to, or a mother that you can go to, or, maybe everybody around you are looking like what you're going through, and you're looking for an exit. So this is why I'm saying, like, when we're talking about, sometimes we have to create ourselves. We have to pour into ourselves. We have to try to figure it out. Where do we figure it out? Where do we get these resources? We in a technological world where you can get information from internet, from YouTube, from all of this kind of stuff.
This is the thing about getting misinformation.
Yeah, because also what I was also going to say is, like, a lot of times, because we living in such a social media world, also people can project things that they only want you to see the good. They only want you to see how they dressed up, how they, how they made up, how they, celebrating a new job or celebrating a birthday, but not the lows, those difficult times, those financial woes, those emotional, emptiness. Like, a lot of things that you're dealing with on a day-to-day basis, you don't see a lot of it pushed forward. That's why this She Shack is so important. That's why transparency to me is so important. I don't know if this, could ultimately be like, oh, I like when you said this, or did you do that, or this and that and the third. But me being honest, it wasn't like an overnight thing. It wasn't over a 5-year thing. This has been over a lifespan of things that has, have occurred, transitioned, coming to creating a new me, and deciding that not to run from my shortcomings, not to run from or try to hide, put my hands, how they say you throw a rock and put your hands behind your back. I don't want to be that person. I want to say, hey, I get it, I understand, but I'm not saying that I got the
She doesn't have the blueprint.
I'm not saying I have the blueprint, but what I am saying is some of this stuff is a blueprint that's been laid in front of, for this worked for mom, this worked for my great aunt. This is like, it's kind of like almost to a sense bulletproof. Not perfection, but if you at least follow the yellow brick road, it can bring you to.
You're trying to talk about my shirt.
No, but it can bring you to, a level of happiness. You can create your own pathway with your own happiness, because we have the power to do those things. So
and
that's
and you know what? It kind of brings it back, because I used to wonder why, when I was working on a full-time basis, I used to work with a lot of young adults, a lot of young girls. And they used to come to me all the time. Miss Charlene, can I talk to you? Miss Charlene, can I talk to you? And I would listen to what they be telling me, you know. And sometimes I'd be like, Lord, what in the world are they telling me this? It ain't got nothing to do with work, okay? But I took the time out of my busy day to sit down in a private area and listen to their problems.
Would you agree that listening is a skill?
Yeah, it is a skill, because you know, sometimes you have to listen and not so much read into what the person is saying, but listen to what they are saying. And sometimes I think, to me, when a person is talking to you and you're just listening and not commenting, sometimes they come up with their own answers. And I used to tell them all the time, you know, I'm not perfect. It's a lot of things in my life you don't know anything about. And I'm not going to tell you what to do one way or the other. Okay? I'm going to tell you what you have to do is what you deem necessary for you. Wait. I would tell, you know, I would recommend. Okay? I would recommend. But I'm not going to say, girl, this is what you need to do.
No, that's not what I'm saying. But what I will say is this. This is what I will say.
I would encourage them.
I would share. This is what if it's a situation.
About sharing. This is the thing about me.
Hold on. Hear me out. I'm not talking about sharing about your personal business. If that's something you choose not to do. But what I would do if somebody came to me with a situation maybe that I was familiar with, I'll always say I'm not gonna really tell you what to do, because that's not really my position. That's not the role that I play. But what I can tell you is this. I dealt with a similar situation.
And that's what I would tell them.
And when I deal with a similar situation, these are some of the things I found that helped me through what I was dealing with. At that time. Or I'll say something like, you know, I'm not familiar with this kind of situation. However, if you ever need somebody to just listen, or if you need somebody to just, you know, be a sounding board for, I'm willing to do that.
Yeah, I would give them my phone number, and I would tell them, look, I can't really get into it with you right now because, you know, you at work, I'm at work, blah, 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 this, that, and the third. But here's my number. Call me when you have some free time.
What I think we need to be, as women, seasoned women,
we need to be more available to our younger adult women, our younger teenage girls, or our younger women, period.
Make it that I know for me, because me and my mom was having a conversation before we actually went on live, and one of the things I was talking to my mom about, and we're gonna get more in detail about that later on as these creating a new you series come along. But one of the things I was saying to her was, I was like, you know, Mom, I said I didn't have a prayer life at all, because most of the people that was in church didn't look like me. They was either older than me or younger than me, and I was in an awkward stage where I didn't find women making time. What I did find was, like, when you typically you will find refuge in the church, I found judgment. I found people pointing fingers. I found people talking about me. I found people putting me down instead of trying to lift me up, trying to encourage me. They was pointing fingers and saying, oh, look at her. She ain't gonna know. She got all these kids, all of this. Just talking and looking at me off of the edge of their nose, not knowing anything that I had, that I was dealing with internally, and did not make themselves accessible to a young lady that was in a time in her, a contentious time in her life where you're not really sure what you're doing. So I think we have to take some accountability of not being available and so quick to pass judgment and so quick to be like, oh, this got a rack of kids, 2, 3 kids, 3, 4 kids, 4, 3, 4 baby daddies. You don't know the story. So instead of being so quick to judge the book by its cover, as older women that can have something to offer through our experiences, we got to take some accountability for that.
That's true. You remember when you first began, I told you when I was coming up as a young woman, they had gave me a whole house full of children, and I didn't have not one kid. Okay?
I think that was the times, because I babysit everybody kids.
Yeah, and they were like, they prejudged me before they even knew me. Before they even saw me coming. Oh, this is the one with all these kids, blah, blah, this, that, and the third. And I'm looking at them like they got 2 damn heads on their shoulder. Like, who the hell are you talking about?
But I was the girl with all these kids, because
I
had 4 kids.
I wasn't at the time. Didn't have any kids. I didn't even have a boyfriend. Let's keep it 100. Okay.
But how does it feel to be judged?
I was like, I wasn't in a good place. Let me just say it that way. I wasn't in a good place, and the reason why I wasn't in a good place, number one, I was young. I was young. I was young. I lost my mother when I was 16 years old. Okay, I was going through the motions of death. Okay, I was going through depression. I was lost, confused, angry. Didn't know how my future was going to pan out. Yes, people were pointing fingers and this, that, and the third at me, talking down to me, not necessarily talking to me.
In our own community. In our own community.
And these are people that I've known all my life until my mom closed her eyes, and then it was like, this is the switch that was off. Now this is the switch that was on. It was like a day and night kind of situation.
But the thing is, what do we do to change it? Like you've incurred it as a young lady, as a coming up. You had a lot of things that you was personally dealing with, and you dealt with people making accusations and judging, and that ultimately, even though when we kind of think about it, it makes you feel a certain way about yourself. So even at your age, you dealt with it. Then you have a child who grows up, who deals with it. Yeah. Who's to say that my own daughters, because I have 2 daughters, who's not also dealing with it to an extent. At the end of the day, where do we stop the bus? When do we stop putting down our young people and doing something productive and positive?
That's true. We have to be more productive. We have to be more positive. You have to stop doing a whole lot of finger pointing. And it's all about educating yourself. You have to educate yourself, okay? And I'm gonna even say 10 years ago, life is different 10 years ago than it is today.
They say we change every 7 years. We evolve.
Okay, so what happened? The avenues that could have been available to me as a young adult was not. Okay, but the avenues that are available now is a lot different than what could have been available back then and there. Because I'm going to have to be absolutely honest with you. I didn't know anything about therapy or consultation I didn't know anything about any of those things until I got into the medical field. Nobody never told me about them, And then you have to realize, when I was coming up, my grandparents raised me. And when they came up in their era, it was like hush hush. These are things you just didn't talk about.
We actually talked about that. We mentioned that in a few of our series as we've been, discussing different topics in the She Shack. But one of the biggest misconceptions in our African American community has always been, I was even taught that when I was a child, what happens in this house, stay in this house. And I applaud Tyler Perry, actually, because he started putting it in his plays, and he started challenging that statement, what happens in this house, stay in this house. Because if something in this house is happening and it is hurting you, it's not supposed to stay there.
No,
you're supposed to be able to speak up and say that something is actually hurting you.
Yeah. And when the young lady was here that wrote the book Tequila's Way, I could relate to quite a few things that were in her book. Okay, And the reason why I could relate to quite a few things that was in her book, not everything, but
Shout out to Tamika.
Yeah, some of those things that she wrote about in her book, the reason why I could relate to them is because they did happen to me.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Not to the extent whereas it happened to her, but it happened, you know. So I was like, okay. So that was,
hold on.
For me, that let me know
bring them
that.
up to speed because maybe everybody have not read this book. So if you haven't had an opportunity to read the book To Kill Us Away, so maybe you can follow along in this conversation. I'll give you a small synopsis of some of the things that happened. Tamika spoke very vividly about her challenges with bipolar disorder. She also talked about some sexual traumas that she dealt with as a young girl, and how it influenced her life moving forward into becoming a woman, a wife, a mother, that kind of thing. She talked a lot about the tragedies and the triumphs that she incurred during this time, but she had a beautiful twist on it, and Tequila being the alter ego of who she was. Mm-hmm. And so if you can maybe kind of like relate to that, then that'll help you understand where my mom going with it when she's talking about she can relate to some of the things that happened in the book, specifically highlighting some issues with sexual trauma that she dealt with as a young woman. And if you recall, especially if you follow along with us in the She Shack, she spoke openly and vividly about that in a couple of our sessions. Mm-hmm. That we talked about, and that can also and that's one of those things that it kind of get brushed over. People don't like to talk about it. They don't like to put a spotlight on it. It's that little dirty thing that happens that nobody really want to talk about, and you just got to figure out a way to heal from it and move on. But
sometimes people don't heal. Mm-hmm. Okay, and mm-hmm. they don't move on, and mm-hmm. that is the guiding force behind their life because of the trauma that happened to them in their younger life, and they never really dealt with it. Now, this is the thing that I can say that I'm very proud of my daughter, that even though she had some traumatic things to happen in her life, she managed to deal with them and come to terms with them. You mm-hmm. cannot change what happened to you as a young person, but you can change your thought process and how you're going to move forward in your life. Mm-hmm. Same thing with me. Mm-hmm. I used to doubt who I was as a person. Mm-hmm. Okay? Mm-hmm. Because I used to act like I needed confirmation from somebody.
And can you imagine, for me to hear you say something like, I doubted who I was as a person, it's almost wow, because there was a time in my life where you was like my superhero. Literally my superhero, in a sense that I'm talking about. Thinking about, and again, you got to think about my little young mind at the mm-hmm. time, right? I'm thinking about our big escape from Kentwood, our large escape from Kentwood. It was a big escape to moving into the Magnolia Projects, mm-hmm. And we lived there for a short time. And I remember you working as a nursing aide and going mm-hmm. back and forth to Kenner, Louisiana, because it was a little bit more money to make than in Orleans Parish. And I remember, us dealing with some traumatic issues during the crack era and being affected mm-hmm. by that within our household, and you making moves right away. Oh, this is not gonna happen, that's not gonna happen. I remember us having a vehicle where we had to ride like this because we didn't have a bottom to the car, but we was riding to staying even before we got into the Callio Projects, when we lived behind the Callio Projects on top of a garage that was our bedroom, and my brother had bunk beds in the kitchen that was across from the bathroom, the kitchen, and then you didn't have a bed. It was only 2 rooms in there. It was 1 room, the kitchen. Mm-hmm. No, I'll take that back. 3. It was a living room, a kitchen, and a bathroom is what was there. And I remember times where you would count out 15 cents. I remember that. And that 15 cent, you go down to this little corner store and you go get one box of macaroni and cheese. It was 12 cents. You would get me 15 cents to go get one box of macaroni and cheese, which was enough to feed just me and my brother some, to split between the two of us, and most times you didn't eat. I remember going from that stage in our lives to going to the projects when it felt like, for us, it felt like the Jeffersons. That we were moving on up. That's how it felt to us, coming from that disparity going into, something else. Mm-hmm. And so, just watching all these different transitions, it felt like, wow, like mom is like the best. Like, I remember us being able to go into a department store for the first time and getting a pair of shoes that we didn't have to go get that somebody else had already worn. Mm-hmm. I remember those victories. So for me, when looking, a little black girl looking through the window of a superhero, because at this time in our lives, you're a single parent. Mm-hmm. And you are busting it out, sending us the babysitters, sometimes taking chances and having to leave us alone, and getting commodities, foods, and doing all of these things that needed to be done. But in the process of all of those things, the things that you were feeding us, the things that you were teaching us, the guidance that you was giving us was remarkable. So when I hear you say, I doubted who I was, I'm like, what? Because to me, I'm like, are you serious? Like, this is the lady to me that was like indestructible in my eyes as a little black girl, especially looking at, because my brother and I, we grew up in the crack era. So in this era, in time in life, you saw people losing their houses. You saw kids, who single parents, but they were like, they was, they were strung out on the drugs and all of this kind of stuff. But mom stayed true to her roots. You be in here before these street lights come on. Don't you leave off of this porch. You go to that school. You come back. You sit here. You do your homework. Woo. But she was very like her. Even when she wasn't in the home, the presence of her was always felt. So when I hear you say, I was unsure of myself, I'm like, wow. Like, if this could be something that could affect my mother, whom I saw as just the apple in my freaking eyes. I mean, I don't, wow.
Because you have to realize, I did what needed to be done. Mm-hmm. Okay? At that particular time in my life, even now, I do what needs to be done. I had to condition myself.
Okay.
All right?
Yeah.
See, this is the thing. When I was coming up, I really didn't feel loved by my family. Period. Okay.
When you say family, you talking about like siblings, or you talking
the
about
whole shebang?
Okay.
Other than my grandparents who raised me.
Okay.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't feel loved by my mother, none of my sisters and brothers at that particular time in my life.
This a show. We gonna make this a show.
So I'm just being 100 with you.
Uh-huh.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
So when I got to be an adult, I felt so alone. So
even with having a family, because married, children.
See, what I'm getting to is, I wanted to have a baby, and the reason why I wanted to have a baby is because I wanted someone in my life that was going to love me unconditionally. And at that particular time, I figured if I had a child of my own, that child would love me for who I am.
Do you think that a part of that decision was maybe a selfish one?
Well, I don't know. At that particular time, I really don't know. I'm not going to say it was selfish, not selfish, or whatever the case may be. I didn't set out to get pregnant and have a kid. Let me just say that.
But you wanted one.
But I wanted one. I didn't set out to get pregnant. I didn't. Mm-hmm. I was 18. I waited till I was 18 years old. Didn't nobody touch me? No. Not till I was 18. Okay, so on my 18th birthday in true enough, I was involved with a much older guy. Okay, and he was the first person that really treated me like somebody.
Wow, because that's really big that you even say that, because I think, because we just dealt with or put some spotlight on domestic violence, and sometimes I think even with people like could be dealing with situations like that, they're feeling like nobody loves them, or they don't feel like their family supports them, or a combination of those things,
right?
And then they start to seek comfort in someone else and find themselves in another kind of abusive relationship,
right?
Because abuse come in all different types, because some people say, oh well, you say, oh, he don't put his hands on me per se, but then you may be dealing with someone that could be controlling, that could be dominating, that could be emotional abuse, it could be spiritual, it could be a combination, it could be verbal. So that's big, like that's huge that you were able to like even pinpoint that this is something that I was dealing with, this is the choice that I made, and that began like a snowball of other events.
Yeah, it did. And it kind of molded me into a particular type of person. As I got older, I realized that is not who I wanted to be. Now, the second thing is, because now I had a child involved, I realized that's not the life I wanted my kids to be in.
That's
you go through different stages, and yes, you have to. Yes, I reinvented myself. Okay, because
more than one time, you can't say, "Look, I just."
I kept evolving. Even now, I'm still
constantly. That's where I wanted us to get
even
to.
Now, I'm still reinventing myself. Even you, I mean, you constantly. To me, a foolish person is a person that continually do the same thing and think they're going to get a different result.
Well, actually, that's not a foolish person. That's not a foolish person. Because that's actually the clinical definition of insanity, of doing the same thing and expecting a different result. But I just want y'all to know that when we're sitting here, we're talking about and we're banging our heads up a little bit and we're having healthy discussion about, different aspects of our lives, things that, contributed to us making transitions, creating a new path for ourselves, that it wasn't without trial and error. It wasn't without, doing some things that you learn as you get older that is regrettable. It's not without abusing time that God has given us. But the message here is this: you still have the opportunity to change the direction. You still have time to ask God to revamp that time for you and give it back so that you can find yourself in a happy place, in a productive place, not comparable to the person that you see on the internet, on the Instagram, or the person that lives next door or across the street, but finding yourself happy with you inside, accepting you for who you are inside. Because if you make one step, that's all you gotta make is one. You make one step. You listen to that inner voice inside of you, because it's really not your voice. That's God. That's the Spirit of God. That's the Spirit of God speaking to you. That's that guiding light that you hear the older, wiser people speak about. That guiding light. I'm so grateful that I had enough sense to get out of my way for one time to be able to listen and to the voice and follow the guiding light. So this is what our series of creating the new you is going to be about. We are unpacking this stuff. I want to see everybody be the best version of them. No, not comparable to me, not comparable to someone else, but the best version of you, where you have joy from the inside that is illuminated on the outside. I want to thank y'all so much for tuning in to the She Shack. This is, I absolutely love y'all, and I enjoy so much of speaking to you and sharing bits and pieces of me every single Tuesday when we come on. This is transparency. I'm giving the best that I know that could give. Some people may say, oh, I don't like what they talking about. Oh, they talk about God too much. Or, oh, it's too low budget. Or, oh, it's like so many different O's. But I had someone I talked to today, a very good friend of mine, that was reminding me, sometimes people can get jealous of things that they see you do, or they want to have the life that you have, or they can be haters of you and this and that. We need them all. We need the naysayers and the yaysays. We need the people that's going to encourage and the people that's going to talk. Because no matter what you do in this life, they still going to talk about you. Yeah. So why don't you make it your promise to you to be the best version of you, one step at a time, one day at a time. It's not going to happen overnight. That's why it's called a journey. Mm-hmm. Thank y'all so much for tuning in to the She Shack Conversations with me, A Queen. You can find us on YouTube. You can like and subscribe. I'm telling you guys, when I tell you every single day our power is growing, our viewers grow, it's all because of you. So share it, like it, and if you know someone that have not watched and have not subscribed, encourage them to do so. Follow us on YouTube. Follow us on Instagram, Conversations with A Queen. Also follow us on Facebook, Conversations with A Queen. We have a personal blog. It's all called the same thing. We on LinkedIn. We on Twitter. Listen, bear with me with this Twitter thing, y'all, because I'm still learning the ins and outs of this whole Twitter thing and how to figure out how to make the right posts and make all, to generate some conversation. But I want you to know that when you hear me speak, when you hear me encourage, and when you hear me talk about or share things, this is real stuff. This ain't made up for TV. This ain't, what they call the reality TV. Hit the rewind. This is live. We do this live every Tuesday at 7 o'clock, and we do it with you guys. And I thank you so very much for tuning in to another night with me, A Queen, and my mama in the She Shack. We love y'all. Bye. Good night.